Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going to discuss the software implementation and documentation. These are the learning objectives of this topic. Number one, implement the structured programming, software coding, and implementation. Number two, understand the different programming style and coding guidelines. Number three, know the key issues that have to be considered when implementing software, including software reuse and open source development. Now, let's talk about the structured programming. Okay, so in this chapter, we will study about the programming methods, documentation, and challenge in software implementation. Okay, so structured programming, all right. So is the set of design and implementation processes that yield well structured programs. Okay, so in the process of coding, the lines of code keep multiplying the size of the software increases. Okay? So gradually, it becomes next to impossible to remember the flow of the program. If one forgets how software it is underlying program, files, procedures, and constructed, it then becomes very difficult to share, debug, modify the program. So the solution to this structured programming, it encouraged the developer to use the subroutines, the loops, instead of using simple jumps in the code. Thereby bringing the clarity in the code and improving its efficiency. Structured programming also helps programmers to reduce coding time and organize code properly. Okay, so structured programming, a disciplined approach to programming. We have the top-down design, stepwise refinement using restricted set of programming structures. Okay, so structured programming states how the program should be coded, and it uses three main concepts. So top-down, the modular programming, and the structured coding. Okay, let's talk about with the top-down analysis. A software is always made to perform some rational work, and these rational works, okay, in these rational works, thrown a problem in the software parlance. Thus, it is very important that we understand how to solve the problem. Under the top-down analysis, the problem is broken down into small pieces where each one has some significance, and each problem is individually solved and steps are clearly stated about how to solve the problem. Okay, so these are the top-down design. A program is divided into the main module and is related to the modules. Each module is in turn divided into sub-modules until the resulting modules are understood without further division. So these are the example of the main module, module 1 and the module 2, and it breaks into the sub-modules. Okay, this. Likewise, the modular programming, ayan. So modular programming, where programming the code is broken down into smaller group of instructions. So these groups are known as modules, subprograms, or subroutines. Okay, so modular programming, based on the understanding of the top-down analysis, it discourages jump using go-to statement into the program, which often makes the program flow non-traceable. Jumps are prohibited and modular formats is encouraged in structured programming. Okay? So, structured programming is a programming paradigm aimed at improving the clarity, quality, and development time of the computer program. By making extensive use of the structured control flow, constructs of selections of if or then and else, okay, and repetition while or for loop, okay, block structures, and the subroutines. Okay, ayan. Right? So, ayan. So, documentation requirements. So, the general requirements of the software documentation should provide for the communication among team members, should act as an information repository to be used by maintenance engineers, should be provide enough information to manage to allow them to perform all program management related activities, and should be described to users to how to operate and administer the system. Documentation requirements. In all software projects, some amount of documentation should be created prior to any code being written. So the design docs and so on. So documentation should continue after the code has been completed. So the user manuals and the designs. The two main types of documentation created are process and the product documents. So process documentation used to record and track the development process. Okay, this is the planning, the documentation, the costs, the schedule, the funding tracking, the schedules, the standards, and etc. So this documentation is created to allow for successful management of software product. So the process documentation has a relatively short lifespan. Only important to internal document process are uh, gather or put in the process documentation, except in the case where these customers require a view into this data. So some items such as papers that describe design, decision should be extracted and moved into the product documentation category when they become implemented. Right. So product documentation. So product documentation, this is describes the delivered of the product, the delivered product. Must evolve with the development of the software product. And the two main categories of the product documentation, the system documentation and the user documentation. So product documentation, system documentation describe how the system works, but not how to operate it. Okay, so if you talk about system documentation, describe how the system or the flow of the system works. Example, requirement specification, architectural design, detailed design, commented source code, okay, including the output, such as Java doc, text plans, B&B plan, and list of known bugs. So those are the examples of the product documentation. Okay, so next is the product. Okay, so user documentation has two main types, and user and the system administration. Okay, in some cases, there are same people that okay, the target audience must be well understood. Ayan.